Shadow of the Beast. 4 words that send shivers down the spines of all Commodore Amiga owners. The game was published in 1989 by Psygnosis. It was developed by Reflections, the company that also developed its 2 sequels, as well as several other classic Amiga games such as Awesome and Brian the Lion. In the game we play the part of Arbron, who was kidnapped when he was still a boy by an evil wizard called Maletoth. That's a cool name for a black metal band actually. Anyway, Maletoth transformed him into a monster and forced him to do his bidding. Arbron, however, blew a gasket when he saw his father being executed by Maletoth's goons, so he decided to avenge him. The game rose immediately above the competition thanks to its amazing graphics and its incredible atmospheric music. Said music was composed by David Whittaker, who is also responsible for the music of several Amiga games, including Wonder Boy in Monsterland. Shadow of the Beast's graphics, besides being diverse, detailed, beautiful, with wonderful backgrounds, boasts 12 different parallel scrolling levels, which give the game a sense of depth unique for its time. There's only one more element to make the game rise to perfection. Its gameplay. The game is your typical side-scroller of the beat-em-up variety. On the top left corner of the screen there is a cardiogram with the number 12 written next to it. That's the number of hits we can take before we die. Now about the cardiogram, even though it's been 27 years since I first played the game, I still don't know what it's about. The first thing that I noticed about the game is that our hero is incredibly strong. He can kill all of his enemies with a single punch, and I mean all the enemies, even if they're 5 times his size. Only the bosses need a few more punches to go down. We can also do a flying kick, which however rarely hits home, and in general I find it completely useless. So to sum up, our hero can take up to 12 hits and he can kill any enemy with a single punch. Easy. Not! Shadow of the Beast has earned its rightful place among the hardest video games of all time. There are many reasons for this. First, the game demands a trial and error kind of approach if you wanna go far. This is not a problem in itself, there are many such games that are really fun to play, such as Rick Dangerous. The difference is that with Rick Dangerous, if you memorize all the traps, then you can avoid them almost every time after the first one. In Shadow of the Beast, even if you know where the next enemy is coming from, it's still not certain that you'll be fast enough to hit them before they hit you. The enemies appear at a frequency that is more suited to a space shooter rather than a beat-em-up game. There's simply too many, and they move too fast. No matter how good your reflexes are, you're sure to be hit more times than you'd want to. And as if that isn't enough, there are some instances where it's simply impossible to avoid being hit. For example here, where your only choice is whether you'll get hit by the dragon, or if you let the Psygnosis logo fall on your head. The bosses require zero strategy. You just punch them as fast as you can, and hope that they'll die before you do. And on top of that, the game just outright cheats, since you can actually lose health even if you hit the enemy before they hit you or fall on you. So you'll just lose again and again and again and again and again and again. In the end, you lose all hope of ever beating the game. All Amiga owners know full well what I'm talking about. Just like Pavlov's dog drooled every time his boss rang the bell, these 8 notes force us to spontaneously reflect upon our own mortality and the futility of existence every time we hear them. So just do the obvious and never look back. But since Murphy's Law applies to video games as well, Reflections made sure to add a lovely little cherry on top of this moldy and abominable cake with a deceivingly wonderful exterior. I'm talking of course about the so-called puzzles of the game. Let me explain what I mean. At the start of the game, the beast is turned towards the right of the screen with a sign reading welcome over his head. Welcome! Now that's trolling! Anyway, as all you older gamers probably remember, almost all side-scrollers of that time, whether they were beat-em-ups, slash-em-ups, shoot-em-ups or platform games, had one thing in common. You'd always fight your way from left to right until you reach the end of the level. With this fact etched on your brain, you do the same inside of the beast as well. There's a huge well only a few steps ahead of you. You obey to the huge red in sign that flashes over it, and you go down the ladder, only to discover that it leads to a dead end. At least, when you climb back up, the game has the courtesy to suggest that you may need a key to go further. So you keep going right, killing a host of bizarre enemies, such as Sonic's grandpa and the Aardvark's evil twin. After a while you reach a castle and you go straight in. As soon as you step away from the entrance to the castle, everything goes dark and you can't see shit. You go back outside thinking that you probably missed something. Indeed, a few meters further down you find a torch. Wow, that was cheap, you think. Thank God I figured it out so easily. Poor guy, you've no idea what you're in for. You go back inside the castle and keep moving right. After a while you drop down a ladder, and a bit further down you come across a 3-headed dragon. You start punching him, but to no effect. So you turn back and... You reset your Amiga and start over. This time you go to the left after entering the castle. After killing a bunch of enemies that look like they've jumped out of a painting that H.R. Giger painted when he was high, you find a laser rifle. So now you're like, great, now let's kill that dragon. You try to go back up, but... Second reset and here we go again. This time you search the castle more thoroughly and discover a wrench. You take the laser rifle, you deactivate the electric field with the wrench, you kill the dragon and receive a jetpack. The game turns into a space shooter as it should have been in the first place, but it's still way more difficult than your average space shooter. Anyway, you kill the boss at the end of the level and... If you have Job's patience and an epic calmness, then instead of throwing your Amiga out the window, you reset it a third time. If you're out of luck, then you'll just go back and search all over the castle for the missing key. If you're in luck, you'll go to the left as you should have done in the first place. Yes, I know that in the first loading screen it's made clear that you can go both ways, but when I was 12 years old my English were as poor as my patience. After a while you find a key. Now all you need to do is go back outside. You can't go out the way you came, so you start exploring the area. You find a dragon who is bouncing some kind of sphere up and down. You punch the sphere till it disappears, and you discover that you've just acquired a kick-ass weapon. Overjoyed, you rush to shoot the first enemy that you will come across. Soon, however, your joy disappears as you discover that if you use the weapon on anyone, you lose it. With a bit of luck, you discover that you must go inside this thing that's supposed to be a teleporter. Almost immediately after that, you face the boss for whom this weapon was intended. You keep searching and find another key. So now you're like, please God, let this be it. Further down the level, you find the special weapon that you need to kill the red rhino, after which you go up the well. You use one of the two keys to go in the well. As for the other one, you pray to every god and demon that you know for it to be the one that opens the door at the end of the jetpack level. So you go back to the castle, you grab the torch, you grab the key, you grab the laser rifle, you grab the jetpack, and lo and behold the door opens. You leave the castle and kill a few more enemies before arriving at the boss, or rather its foot. I guess that's what inspired Capcom's humongous bosses. Anyway, you punch his foot a bunch of times and you went through all that for this. In my opinion, if you beat the game fair and square, you deserve €1,000 and Megan Fox. However, despite its cruel difficulty and its uneven gameplay, Shadow of the Beast is still one of Amiga's most memorable games. The fact that all us Amiga owners have rather fond memories of it is in itself an important achievement.